Welcome into NFL bad beats and also improbable wins from week 11. And we're not just talking, the classic bad beat, but kind of a hidden bad beat that we look at through win probability, things that often get unnoticed when you just take a look at the box scores on Monday morning, which teams got lucky, which teams got unlucky, because these things are important to note when you're handicapping future games. It's good to, for your own good to say, hey, did I deserve this win or did I not? Especially when you're betting these games, sides, totals, it all matters. I'm Tim Kalinowski. I'm joined by Nick Giffen, the brains behind the operation. He's the one that's able to calculate all this for me. And he spits it out in a very easy to understand nature. And he outlined 3 bad beats this week. And the first one is going to be the Commanders and the Giants. How in the hell do the Commanders lose to the Tommy DeVito Giants? I can just tell you from watching Red Zone, that Washington turned the ball over about 1 billion times, Nick. So we'll start off here. You have the wrong team actually winning this game, and we're going to start actually with a 1st and goal play before we get into all the turnovers.
Yeah, so we've talked about this, if you're new to the bad beats, we talk about this week in and week out. If you get 1st and goal at the 5, the expectation is more than a field goal in the NFL. And it doesn't matter the quality of your offense versus the quality of the defense. Even for the best offense versus the worst defense, the expectation is more than 3 points. In this case, it was around 5.9 points for this particular matchup. They came away with a field goal. This is 2.9 points below expectation. And that's part of why, Tim, the actual score ended in this game 31-19, but the expected score was 27-19 in the Commanders' favor. So that's why this was the first play, first sequence, I should say, that led to some under expectation offensively for the Commanders. And like you said, it wasn't a turnover.
Yeah, and so we'll just get in here. I think it's easier to just play a montage of basically not top 10, some of the these dreadful turnovers from Washington. 3 fumbles, 3 picks. I think maybe I'll ask you, is there one that had a bigger impact than another, or is it cumulative? Add it all up, it's just disgusting.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's obviously one that had the biggest impact, and that would be the final one, which is a pick 6, because that not only swings against Washington's offensive expectation, but then New York Giants put up 6 or 7 points on the board that they weren't even expected to get. So it's a big swing there in terms of luck. And turnovers happen, especially, to a guy. I had Sam Howell over half an interception. I don't think I had him over 2.5 interceptions, but I had him over half an interception as tracked in the Action Network app. And it was one of those things where even for a team that may be a little bit turnover prone, they turned it over way more than expectation, especially against the Giants defense here. So just a spot where too many turnovers. The Commanders offensively lost 12 expected points from these turnovers. And like we said, the Giants added 6 or 7 points here from the final pick 6. So I'll add it all up, and that's a huge swing right there.
And you and I were talking earlier today, and you said that you outline it as basically Washington's offense versus the Giants defense, and then vice versa. And that's how, a lot of these numbers get spit out. So with that pick 6 and being a gigantic, major point swing, you have to apply that to both sides of the ball, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So that's part of it. Like I said, the Commanders lost an offensive possession where it has some expectation to score, regardless of where they're in the field. Some of these drives will turn into scoring drives from that spot. In this case, it didn't. And defensively for the Giants, they're not expected to score a touchdown on that, putting points on the board for the Giants. So when we look at it all, just everything together, the Commanders were the better team. They had an offensive success rate of 45.5%, and the New York Giants had an offensive success rate of 35%. That's more than a 10% difference. It just so happens that, the unsuccessful plays for the Commanders were maybe the most potentially possible unsuccessful plays in these massive turnovers, as I think we're about to look at this ridiculous pick 6 here from Sam Howell.
Yeah. And, hey, for gamblers, we need to know this, but it's not gonna matter one bit when Tommy DeVito one day is telling his kids about the time that he was playing for the New York Giants and then he beat the Washington Commanders. He ain't gonna mention the turnovers and the luck difference. So
exactly. If you're a Giants bettor, it doesn't matter if they got lucky to cover. You still cover. So there it is. But that's something to keep in mind heading into Thanksgiving week as the Commanders play the Cowboys. The Commanders are coming off of the unluckiest result of week 11.
Yeah, and the Commanders look like they're going to be 11-ish, 10.5-point dogs coming up on Thursday, and pretty nice Thanksgiving slate. I'm looking forward to it. How about the Buccaneers and the 49ers? Look, the 49ers win this game 27-14. The spread was in the 13.5 range when it closed, but the expected score, Nick, you had this game a lot closer.
Yeah, 27-26 in favor of San Francisco. That's a 31% win probability swing. And I'll admit, this one surprised me. I did not think this was going to be in the top 3, let alone second. But, kind of when we get into it, when we look at it, it does end up being closer than we think, closer than this 27-14 scoreline. Certainly should have maybe been a 1-score game. I think 27-26 is a little flattering on the Buccaneers, even though that's what the data says. But hey, that's what we'll roll with because that's what the data says.
Yeah, it did feel closer watching on TV, but it never felt like the Niners were in trouble or not in control of the game. So I think that could be kind of it. We have a lot of respect for what the 49ers are capable of. So let's get in at exactly how this all goes down here.
Yeah, so the Buccaneers here, 1st and 5, not 1st and 10, 1st and 5 after a penalty on the San Francisco 33. So they're in field goal range. And they only have 5 yards to go to get a new set of downs and potentially get closer to getting a touchdown. So they had plenty of scoring expectation on this drive, but losing a fumble there cost Tampa Bay an average of 3.8 points from this drive.
Yeah, 1st and 5. What are we doing here? How about Ayuk, Nick? He's absolutely electric, but 70+ touchdown yard receptions, they don't happen often.
No, they certainly don't. Even for a team as good as San Francisco, Brandon Ayuk can make plenty of big plays. But then again, big plays are always above expectation. When you have the ball inside your own 25-yard line, somewhere around there, you're not expected to score a touchdown on the drive. Maybe you will score some of the time a touchdown, but some of the time a kick field goal, and sometimes you're just going to have to punt it or you'll turn it over. So this becomes way above expectation, even for an offense like San Francisco's versus a defense like Tampa Bay's. And Tampa Bay has a pretty good defense.
Yeah, they do. They do hang in there. And I think, Nick, where your luck, these numbers will make a lot more sense if we look back and say, maybe the Buccaneers had like a backdoor luck ranking because they had about a million chances to come back and score points in this game. And this is just the first of a long sequence of basically the same thing over and over again, this with about 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, this is one of 2 drives here that ended on downs. So this is the one that got closer to the end zone. They were 2nd and 4 at San Francisco's 12-yard line. So they had 4 yards to go to get a first down and potentially grab a touchdown, or they could have scored on 2nd, 3rd, or 4th down, a touchdown itself, let alone a new set of downs. So at this point on that 2nd and 4, the expected score for Tampa Bay, even against this 49ers defense, was close to 5 points. And, they end up coming away with 0. So that right there is 5 points below expectation. They didn't kick a field goal. They didn't get a touchdown. They came away with none. Now, of course, they had to go for a touchdown, which is why they go for it on downs. But even then, they're going to score some of the time. So you're right. Kind of, I like that. The backdoor luck cover almost.
Well, I think about it because Stuckey tweeted actually during this game or after this game, if the Bucs had just kicked a field goal every time they had a chance to backdoor cover, they would have won the game. And that's how I think we look at this, like, expected points, add it all up on aggregate. It could have been a 1-point game. And, Baker Mayfield is, eventually going to throw an interception with about, over 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
It's funny. I was so close to taking Baker Mayfield under on his interceptions, and seeing this last play here, I'm glad I did not, because he threw an interception with just under 3-4 minutes, I should say, to go in the game. You're going to see it right here. The Baker Mayfield interception inside San Francisco's 10-yard line. Once again, it's kind of an unlucky bounce. Like, it wasn't even really his fault. So it just kind of bounces up there, and definitely a luck play there against Tampa Bay.
Yeah, as we watch the highlights, I'm confused about what time of the game this is, because I feel like I watched this ending to the game 700 different times. So, and just to clean up, Nick, too, the IU long touchdown reception, when you look at the yards between these two teams, success rates, that also tells a better story for us, right?
Yeah. Now, San Francisco had like 420 yards, Tampa Bay's 287, but a lot of that came from that one Ayuk play. Without that, both of these teams have 22 first downs, but the yardage comes a lot closer, 344 to 287, so less than a 60-yard difference in San Francisco's favor, as I thought. This should favor San Francisco. And the success rate's only about 5% apart, not like that 10% apart we had with Washington versus the New York Giants. So definitely closer. I feel like this should have been a one-score game instead of a two-score game.
All right, Nick, last but not least here, bad beat number 3. Stop me if you've heard this before. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they lose to Cleveland 13-10. The expected score, looks like a baseball game. Cleveland 19, Pittsburgh 5 is your expected score from your numbers. I'm just going to hand it over to you, because this Pittsburgh Steelers team is just, it's incredible to watch. It's like the most entertaining thing in the entire world.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. The Steelers lose. They fail to cover, yet they are still one of the 3 luckiest teams on the week. It just seems to happen almost every week. Last week was a bit of an exception, although I will take umbrage with that play call on the lateral. But even now, once again, the Steelers lucky, and we're going to get into it. This is some good stuff here. So this right here, a Myles Garrett sack of Kenny Pickett. Was it a safety? Was it not? Ends up not being a safety, barely, by a handful of inches, maybe. So, yeah, he definitely has the ball right hovering over the goal line when contact is made, and they say it's just outside the goal line. So could have had some defensive expectation here, because Pittsburgh's expected score from this drive, or expected points, was actually negative there. So potential for a safety or points on the board for Cleveland from the change of possession.
Okay, I was just about to ask you. So you get points from the possible change of possession there. I was going to ask you how that was different than our lateral, ambiguous play from last week. You didn't, so you didn't just go in, look at the tape and say, I'm adding some points here. That should have been a safety.
No, that's just the NFL stat. Now we adjust that for offensive and defensive things, but essentially the expectation for the Steelers score at that point, the margin was to go down by 2.5-ish points, 3 points on that second and third down play, regardless of whether it was by a safety, a turnover for a touchdown, or just the change of possession and the Browns having their possession and scoring from it.
Yeah, gotcha. Correct. All right. I wanted to make sure, because you're like, hey, we don't do that. But
it's a little bit of a confusing concept, but yeah, I know exactly.
Fair enough. Okay, Cleveland, 1st and goal, the Pittsburgh 6 here. This is to end, is this 10.5? I can't see.
Yeah, but 10.5 here. It comes right after a spike from Dorian Thompson-Robinson. So that spike doesn't count. We're not looking at that play, but the play right after was 4.1 expected points. The Steelers, the Browns could have kicked the field goal here, and they do. So they walk away with 3 points, but they don't get the touchdown. So they lose out on about 1.1 expected points from this sequence to end the half.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to sound like a broken record or be funny, but seriously, 1.1 points means a lot in this game.
In a low-scoring game? Absolutely.
When you have a total.
It means more in these low-scoring games than it does in the high-scoring games, because as you'll see time and again, we had that one earlier. It was the Jets and the Giants, and 15-12 versus 13-14 expected or something like that. It's huge swings, because that determines who could win the game potentially.
Yeah, the ineptitude is really fascinating for these 1.1 points to be a major factor. Okay, we'll clean it up. Jalen Warren, he has been a force this season for Pittsburgh. And this play, he takes it to the house. It feels a little odd watching such an explosive play from this Pittsburgh offense. And I think that might be exactly why it is lucky.
Yeah, it is a little bit. Now, Pittsburgh has scored a lot of explosive play touchdowns this
fair,
year.
They have,
yeah. Calvin Austin had a long one. George Pickens had a long one, I remember. But even then, it's still above expectation. We are adjusting for explosive play rate for these teams as well. Still way above expectation. I mean, look at every other play than this one. The Steelers had 3.1 yards per play outside of this play. So obviously this play is an anomaly, and just goes way above expectation. The Steelers were expected to score 0.2 points from this drive. They come away with 7.
Yeah, I guess that is true. They do hit the explosives, and I feel like I bet against them every week, so I am watching them closely, and it feels like they just put you to sleep. Then all of a sudden they hit the explosive at the right time. That's the other problem with this, or the good thing for them. It's just the timing of when they are able to get a big play from Pickens or whatnot. It's I mean, this team, Nick, is fascinating. I imagine they'll be at the top of your board next week.
Even with the even with the loss, I should say, they'll be number 1 in the luck rankings again. They only drop a few percentage points because this is a game they should have lost. So, they went from 6-3, which was a 66.7% record, to 6-4, which is a 60% record. So that difference right there is only 6.7%, but even then, if they absolutely should have won this game, that's all the percentage would have changed, but they actually should have lost. So that's going to be maybe more than half, that 6.7% drop in luck. So they'll still definitely be number 1 in our luck rankings.
Yeah, we should see the NASCARification of the luck rankings, and they should just be the lucky and the unlucky team presented by the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That's right. We'll get to do that for sure at some point. I think that'll be fun. Keep track of not who crashed, but who got involved in a crash started by somebody else, right?
Exactly.
But here's one other thing. When we're talking luck rankings, we have a new top 3 potentially going into the week. Obviously Pittsburgh number 1, but the Denver Broncos are going to enter into the top 3. They were 4th coming into the week. They didn't have one of the luckiest results of the week, but by virtue of Tampa Bay being unlucky, they fall below the Denver Broncos. So that's important to note, because Tampa Bay, like we said, was one of the 3 unlucky teams this week. So that's going to drop them out of the top.
Yeah, and just off the cuff to finish it off, this Broncos team, I feel like has been getting a lot of love from the bookmakers. And I think when you factor in what you've been talking about for your luck rankings, that could be a possible edge there, because I feel like I continue to be surprised by the love that Denver's getting.
Yeah, their wins over Kansas City and Buffalo were both lucky in terms of expected score, and the game they just had on Sunday Night Football against the Minnesota Vikings, they failed to cover because they were favored by more than the 1 point they won by, and B, was the closest expected score game of the year at 22.35 points for Denver to 22.33 points for Minnesota. So a 0.02 difference. The game should have been a tie.
That's going to make the numbers feel good. So that's well done. This Denver team, they're going to be favored again this week against hosting Cleveland. So at least at the time we're recording this. So we'll have to pay attention to that. Make sure you pay attention to all Nick's lovely writing that you see in the Action app, Action website, and also turn on those notifications so you can see his picks in real time. I know I do. I enjoy it. I always like to see what Nick's on. And Nick, if I don't talk to you, have a happy Thanksgiving and good luck to everybody betting NFL Week 12.